everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my August TBR. So in the month of August, I will be taking part in the Newts Magical Readathon. So I'm going to go through my TBR in kind of the normal way that I normally would, and then get into the Newts more specifically at the end part of this video. So to jump straight in and talk about all of the library books that I need to get through this month and the ones that have due dates, there's quite a few, which is annoying. I have a lot of library due dates at the moment, which sucks, but it is what it is. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 library books here that I need to read this month. So the first one I have is just Mary Ann's Bad Luck Mystery by Anne M. Martin. This is book 17 in the Babysitters Club series, which is a series from my childhood that I'm rereading. So I've got that one. I then have Appointment with Death by Agatha Christie. This is just the next book in the Hercule Poirot series that I need to read. I really love this series, so looking forward to continuing on. I then have Explosive 18 by Janet Evanovich. This is book 18 in the Stephanie Plum series. Again, just the next one in a series. I then have Dream with Little Angels by Michael Hybert. So this is one that I have out from the library because I have a book on NetGalley called, I think it's called A Thorn Among the Lilies or something like that, that I've had out. It's like my oldest NetGalley book that I've had out for forever. And when I went to read it, because it came up as one of my Kindle backlist books, I realized that it's actually the third in a series, and my library did have the previous books, so I got the first one out from the library, and that's what this is. I'm not sure how the series, I think maybe it follows one detective, and this seems to follow, I think it's set in the South, and it follows, I think, the mystery of some young children who were going missing, but I think we're following it from the perspective of a young boy. I think his mother is the detective, so that could be an interesting, like, different way to tell the story. So I've got that. I then have Alice in Zombieland by Gina Showalter. This is the first book in what I think is a trilogy. And I don't know anything about it except that it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling to do with zombies, and this is one of the books that I need to read for one of my goals this year, so I've got that that's due this month. I then have another one that's for one of my goals, and that is How It Feels, by Brendan Cowell. This one, again, I don't really know what it's about. I'm not sure if this is adult or young adult even. It's some kind of contemporary. It is told by an Australian actor, is the author. So again, I need to read it for one of my goals. So I've got that that's due this month. And then the final library book that I have is The Prisoner of Heaven by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is the third book in the Cemetery of Forgotten Books series, but I believe this one is a direct sequel to the first book, I think. So we had the first book, and then the second book was a prequel, and then I think this one's actually, like, is now a sequel to the first book, I believe. So I do really enjoy Carlos Ruiz Zafón's writing. So looking forward to jumping into that. So they're all of the library books that I have. Now to jump into the books from my physical TBR that I'm planning to focus on this month. So basically my main priority this month is to read the Others series by Anne Bishop. So it's a 5-book series. The first book is Written in Red. We then have Murder of Crows, Vision in Silver, Marked in Flesh, and then Etched in Bone. So it's a 5-book series. I have the first book in this really nice edition, and then all of the others are only available in, like, mass market paperbacks. So it's a 5-book series. It's a adult fantasy, like soft fantasy / kind of urban fantasy. It's set in our world, like it's set on Earth, like normal, but it's different. So there are normal humans and everything, but there are also people known as Others, which are werewolf, vampires, etc. But they are more traditional werewolves and vampires and things. They're actually quite brutal and all of that. And we follow a main character who is a human, but she is a blood prophet, which is very rare in this world and very valuable. So when her flesh is cut, she sees prophecies of the future, which is very valuable, as I said, and we basically follow that story. So like I said, there's the 5 books. This is my main focus of my TBR this month. I would like to get through this entire series this month. And then the only other thing that I'm definitely planning to focus on off my TBR is my next reread that I'm doing, which again is one of my goals this year. My next reread is going to be The Fun House by Dean Koontz. This is, I think, one of the first horror books that I ever read. When I first got into horror and stuff, it was through my older sister. And I think I read this originally when I was like, I want to say somewhere between like 10 to 13. I feel like I was like 11 or 12. And I distinctly remember reading this on Christmas holidays. It was a book on my sister's shelf, and I was scandalized because there's like quite a raunchy-ish scene. Well, at least it was to me when I was like 11 or 12, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I don't know if mum and dad would let me read this if they knew like what was in here. And so it was the first horror that I ever read, and I haven't read it since then. So we're talking 20 years ago. So I want to reread this, and this is a book that I picked up secondhand. I want to reread it and kind of re-experience the story and see if it's as scary and as raunchy as what I remember thinking that it was when I was like 11. So that is the physical books of my physical TBR. To touch on the ebooks that I'm planning to read this month. So the first ebook that I'm planning to read is Wildcard by Rachel Vincent. This is the 3rd book in the... what is this series called? I can't remember what it's called. It's the spin-off series to the Shifters series by Rachel Vincent. It's the 3rd one. I believe it's the last one published, and I thought that this was the last book, but in looking into it, I think that Rachel Vincent is planning to write more in this series, but she is self-publishing these books. I think it's obviously more time-consuming and more expensive for her to publish herself, so they're not coming out as quickly as some other books. So I do believe that she's planning to publish more, but it is the last one currently published. So I've got that. And then the next book that I'm planning to read on my Kindle is Beyond the Highland Mist by Karen Marie Moning. So this is one that, again, that I need to read for one of my goals. And I looked it up at my library, and my library didn't have any physical copies of these books, of the series, but they had the entire set, I think it's a 7-book series. They had the entire 7-book series on ebook, like in a binder. And so I've requested it from my library, and it's come in. And so I'm planning to read at least the first book. I think even if I want to continue, I don't know that I'll be able to do it in one go, because I don't think I'm going to read 7 books just straight through. And I think I'll only have 3 weeks with it before it will have to go back. And then I'll probably have to re-put it on request to read further books in the series. But I'm going to at least read the first one. I'm actually not clear what this is about. I think it's... from what I could gather from the synopsis, it basically seems like Outlander, but paranormal. So I believe it's about a woman who goes back in time into the Scottish Highlands, and it's a romance, but there's like supernatural elements. I think there's like fairies and other creatures and stuff. I'm not exactly clear, but there's that. Like I said, I need to read that for one of my goals, so I've got that. And then the NetGalley book that I'm planning to focus on this month is The Promise by Teresa Driscoll. This is a thriller. It's about there were 3 teenage girls who something terrible happened, and they've kept it, they made a pact to like keep it a secret, and it's now 20 years later or whatever, and they're now adults. 2 of them have remained quite close friends, and the 3rd one they are estranged from. However, something comes up that brings it all back up to the surface again, and these 2 women, I think, are trying to get back in contact with this 3rd woman who they're now estranged from, to kind of figure out what's going on. And it's obviously all about the secrets from the past and all of that. Sounds like a fun thriller. I always love secrets from the past as like a thriller trope. I enjoy that. So that's the ebooks. And then so for audiobooks, as you guys know, if you watch my channel, I get through a lot of audiobooks. I'm just going to let you guys know the next, like the first 3 that I have like on the roster that are out from my library that I'll be getting to in August. The first is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I was so excited when I saw that my library got this in. I have a list on my phone in the app, like where I tag books that I want to eventually read, and that list has got like 60 books on it, and I generally just kind of work my way through slowly requesting them. However, every now and again when they get a book that's really hyped or I'm really excited about, I will put it on hold immediately and not just put it kind of in the queue with the 60 other books. This was one of those. This has been super hyped on BookTube. It is a new adult male-male romance between the President of the United States' son and the Prince of Wales. Very excited about that one. The second audiobook that I've got lined up is called Not Bad People by Brandy Scott. This is another thriller, and it's funny that it actually sounds very similar to the NetGalley book. It's a thriller about 3 women who are friends. I think it's a thriller. It's a little bit different. So it's about 3 women and something happens. So I believe that there's some kind of holiday or festival and they let off some of those paper lanterns. However, it's illegal to let them off apparently in this area, whatever that they live, and they do it anyway. And then at least one of them believes that the paper lanterns that they let off have caused a plane crash of some description, and then it's all about the secrets and stuff that come out about that and all of that type of stuff. I'm not really sure. It sounds kind of interesting, and I do have that out from my library on audio, so I'll be listening to that. And then the third book that I know that I'll be getting to this month on audio is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. So this is the second book in the Farseer trilogy, which is the first of the trilogies by Robin Hobb that follows Fitz. So this is the sequel. I quite enjoyed the first book. I didn't love it, but it was enjoyable enough. I'm interested to continue and see what happens next. This one is significantly longer than the first book. I think this audiobook is like 30 hours. So that one will definitely take me a lot longer to get through than most of the audiobooks do. So those are the books that I have on my TBR this month. So as I mentioned, I will be taking part in the Newts Magical Readathon. So the Newts Magical Readathon is a readathon hosted by G from over at Book Roast. I will leave a link to the original video with all of the announcement and all of the information down below. G has put so much effort and so much thought into this readathon, it's kind of astounding. So if you recall, back in, I think it was April, I took part in the OWLS Magical Readathon, which is kind of the first step. So first you take your OWL exams and you pick a career and you try to complete different exams based on what career you want. And then when it comes time for the Newts, which is now, it's the next step in your magical education to become whatever career path that it is that you're on. So I am taking part. My career that I had picked out that I wanted to do was I wanted to become the new charms professor at Hogwarts. I think it's time for Professor Flitwick to step aside and let some new younger blood in there to teach charms. Charms is my favorite subject at Hogwarts, in case you were interested, and so I want to be the new charms professor. Now, I did complete all but one of the OWLs, so I think it's divination is the only subject that I didn't complete, so I won't be participating in that Newt exam. So in order to become the Hogwarts charms professor, there are 7 books that I would need to read. So basically, to become a Hogwarts professor, you need to get, so this is really complicated to explain. In each exam for each subject, there are 3 levels. There's A for acceptable, E for exceeds expectations, and O for outstanding. And depending on what career you have chosen, there's different levels that you have to reach in different subjects. So to be a Hogwarts professor, the first thing you have to do is you have to get exceeds expectations, which is the 3rd level in the subject you wish to teach, which for me is charms, as I mentioned. So you have to read a book for each level. The other thing in the Newts is that you can't double up at all. So for the first level, for A, for acceptable, for charms, the prompt is to read a book with a gorgeous cover. Now, this is the only one that I don't have specifically picked out. I'm not sure what I'm reading for this. I don't think that really any of the covers that I've shown so far would necessarily fit in for that. So I'm hoping that something that comes up for me on audio this month fits into that, or I may have to just grab something at random off my shelf if towards the end of the month I haven't achieved this yet, and make sure that I get that. Then the next level for exceeds expectations for charms is to read a comic / graphic novel / manga. For that, spoilers, I've actually already completed this challenge. I already read right on the first day of the month. I read The Woods Volume 2 by James Tynion IV. So I've already completed that one. I did ask on Twitter whether you needed to complete the levels in order. And I didn't get an official response, but someone else replied and said that they didn't think that you had to, obviously if you don't get the A and the E, you can't get the O, but as long as you get all three, you don't necessarily have to get them in order, is the way I'm deciding, anyway, that I'm going with it. So I've already completed that. And then for O, for outstanding, it is Spongify, which is the softening charm, which the challenge for that is just to read a paperback. I have like about a bazillion paperbacks on my TBR this month, so I'll just slot whichever one into that prompt that works. Oh, we're getting a low power warning. So there's that. So there's the charms exam is the first one. So there's 3 books for that. The next thing that you have to do, besides getting exceeds expectations, outstanding in the subject you wish to teach, is you have to get at least exceeds expectations in Defense Against the Dark Arts. So to get A for acceptable in Defense Against the Dark Arts, the prompt is to just read a book that's black under the dust jacket. So luckily for me, I had this reread on my shelf to pick up this month because I don't own very many hardbacks. But this reread of Funhouse by Dean Koontz, the book under the dust jacket is black. So I will be using that one to fulfill that prompt. And then for E for exceeds expectations, it's the Gilderoy's Memory Charm, which is to read the first book that comes to your mind. So G in her announcement video was just kind of saying, okay, wait for it. And then now what's the first thing that came into your mind? And the first book that came into my mind when I was watching that video was actually Written in Red by Anne Bishop. I think this was the first thing to come into my mind because I'd been thinking earlier that day about my 5-star TBR predictions video and how many of the books I'd read so far. And this is one of the books that was on that predictions video. And so I think I'd been thinking about, oh, this is the next one that I'll be reading for that video. And so it was just right on the forefront of my subconscious. And so that was the first book that I thought of. So I will be using that one for that prompt. So that's Charms and Defense Against the Dark Arts. And then the only other thing that you need to do is just to get an acceptable level in any 2 other subjects. So I've just picked out 2 that I definitely know I'll be able to achieve, which is Care of Magical Creatures. So to get an acceptable in that subject, the prompt is, what is it? Follow the Spiders. Why couldn't it be Follow the Butterflies? Which is to read a book that starts with A for Aragog. And so I actually had a couple of books on my TBR this month just naturally that started with A. So we've got Alice in Zombieland, Appointment with Death. Either of these would work for that prompt. And then the other exam that I know I'll be able to get an A in is Transfiguration, which the prompt for that one is to read a book with LGBTQIA+ representation. And I had Red, White and Royal Blue on my TBR, which is a male-male romance, so will definitely work for that prompt. So they're the ones that I'm officially going to be trying to achieve so that I can become a Hogwarts professor. Obviously 7 books for me, if you've been watching my channel, you know that that's not really that big of a challenge for me. I read 35 books last month. So I am going to be trying to check off as many of the other exams as I can, just so I can be the most well-rounded professor possible. So I'm going to be trying to get as far through every subject, excluding divination, which I didn't succeed in my OWLS exam for. But every other subject, I'm going to try to get as many of them as I can. So in my recent reads video throughout August, at the end of each recent reads video, I'll just be giving a quick recap on what exams I've completed so far and what levels I'm at. And then obviously in my wrap up at the end of the month, I'll let you know exactly what I managed to achieve. But they're the set subjects that I'm definitely planning to, that I need to check off for my Newts exams. So that's it, you guys. That is my August TBR and my Newts Magical Readathon TBR. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below if you've got any thoughts on any of the books that I'm planning to read, or if you guys are taking part in the Newts Magical Readathon. What career are you trying to achieve? I would love to know. Yeah, I'd just love to chat with you guys in the comments down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. But that is all I have for this video today. Bye, guys.